Hello, welcome. In this video, we will look at the current affairs of month of October. Firstly, we will cover part to part and topic to topic. First of all, we will look at history and culture, then internal security, then other important polity, economy, all these things. In this video, we will look some parts of this and let's go into the another topics then. Coming to the first thing, that is the history and the culture. Uh, in this, the first current affair based on the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's inaugurated this airport in the Uttar Pradesh named Kushinagar International Airport. What it is important from the perspective of the culture and from infrastructure, all these things we will look one by one. And later we will understand what is the significance of this project and all this. Firstly, it is one of the key to connect the Buddhist pilgrimage sites, as Kushinagar is a town in the Kushinagar district of the Uttar Pradesh. And coming to the later things, it is an important Buddhist pilgrimage site where Buddhists believe that Gautam Buddha attained Mahaparinirvana after his death here only. That means Gautam Buddha died here and attained Mahaparinirvana in the town called Kushinagar. It is an important international Buddhist pilgrimage center also. It is also one of the center for Buddhist tourist circuit. What is this concept of a center for tourist circuit means? Coming to the center for Buddhist tourist circuit, it covers majorly four important cities. The first one being the Lumbini, then Kushinagara, then Saranath and Bodh Gaya. For what these four Buddhist circuit significant means, it is the Lumbini where he born, and Kushinara where he died, and Saranath he gave his first sermon. Bodh Gaya where he got enlightened. This is the significance of this Buddhist circuit, including the four cities of the Buddhist circuit. And apart from this, some of the important uh, significant sites of the Buddhist pilgrimage include Shravasti and Bodh Gaya, and also Kushinagar, Kapila Vastu. These are the things. And next, other Buddhist include Nalanda, Shravasti, and Kapila Vastu. History, coming to the history of the Kushinagara, how it has been, who ruled this town, from where it has originated, all these things. It is identified with its oldest name called Kusavati in the pre-Buddhist period, and later Kushinara in the post-Buddhist period. Coming to the ancient era, Kushinara, it was called as Kushinara in the ancient period, which is being the capital of the Mallas. These Mallas, one of the 16 Mahajanapadas of the 6th century BC. Since then, it remained an integral part of the coming empires, including Maurya, Shunga, and later Kushana, Gupta, Harsha, and Pala dynasties. This is the somewhat a status of the Kushinagara in the ancient period. And coming to the medieval period, Kushinagara has passed under the suzerainty of the Kaltari kings in the medieval period. And later, it continued to be a living city till the 12th century CE, and thereafter it lost into oblivion. And it is believed to be ruled by the Rajput adventurer called Madan Singh in the 15th century CE. Coming to the status of this Kushinagara in the modern era, it came into prominence in the 19th century with some of the archaeological excavations carried out by the British. The first archaeological surveyor of India, named Alexander Cunningham, through these archaeological excavations, Kushinagara came into prominence. And later it was followed by C.L. Kerali, who exposed the main stupa here and also discovered 10 meters long statue of the reclining Buddha in 1876. Through this project, so-called airport building and infrastructure building in the Kushinagara, there was also planning to constitute a life-sized statue of the reclining Buddha will be constituted there. That's why it also important. Who discovered the main stupa of the reclining Buddha means C.L. Kerali, who is the archaeological surveyor of the British Empire. Excavations continued till 1907 under J.P.H. Vogel, who uncovered wealth of the Buddhist materials. And later, finally, Chandra Swami, who is a Burmese monk, came to India in 1903. He made Mahaparinirvana temple into a living shrine. Because of him, this temple got somewhat significant. And coming to the other important things, this is a map of the important Buddhist site, including Shravasti, Kushinagara, Lumbini, Saranath, Bodh Gaya, Nalanda, Rajgir, Patna, Vaishali, Kausambi, Lucknow, Lucknow is not there, Saniska, and all these things have been included. Coming to the locations, Lumbini, where Buddha has born, it is situated in the Nepal. Coming to the Kushinagar and Saranath, these two sites are located in the Uttar Pradesh, whereas Bodh Gaya present in the Bihar, Nalanda also in the Bihar, and Vaishali also in the Bihar. Shravasti in the UP itself. UP has three important: Shravasti, Kushinagara, and Saranath, whereas Bihar consists of Bodh Gaya, Nalanda, and Vaishali. And next important things, in 2016, Ministry of Tourism has announced Buddhist Circuit as country's first transnational tourism circuit. Ministry of Tourism announced that Buddhist Circuit being the India's first transnational tourism circuit, covering sites in the Nepal and Sri Lanka, along not only in India but also some sites of Sri Lanka and Nepal. That's why it is developed as one of the first transnational tourism circuit. The map of the Buddhist circuit include Bodh Gaya, Vaishali, Rajgir in Bihar, and Kushinagara, Saranath, Shravasti in the Uttar Pradesh, and Lumbini in the Nepal. And significance of these places: the Buddha born as a Prince Siddhartha Gautama in the 563 BC in the Lumbini. He lived until age of 29 with his parents in the Shakya capital of the Kapilavastu. From there, he got enlightened under the Bodhi tree near the Bodh Gaya, and he gave his first sermon near Saranath, near the Varanasi. Majority of his life he taught in the area around Rajgir, and he built a first monastery by the king Bimbisara of the Magadha, and he lived the largest part of his life in the Shravasti, and later he delivered his first sermon in the Vaishali and his last sermon in the Vaishali and got Parinirvana in the Kushinagar. Coming to the, just remind once all these things. Born in Lumbini in 563 BC, lived up to 29 years in the capital of the Shakya, that is the Kapilavastu, and later enlightened in the Bodh Gaya and gave first sermon in the Saranath, and he also taught in the area of the Rajgir, and he was built a monastery by the king Bimbisara, and he lived largest part of his life as Buddha in the Shravasti, His last sermon given at Vaishali, and finally attained Parinirvana at the Kushinagar. This is the things about the some of the Buddhist circuit and Kushinagara and all things proposed by the government of India, all these things. And coming to the Nobel Prizes and some of the miscellaneous topics. Coming to the generally we see from the perspective of UPSC, but don't ask the names of the persons who got prize for the medicine of the Nobel physics or these things. They only ask for which they have been received. Coming to the medicine and physiology, discoveries of receptors for temperature and touch. For this, they got Nobel Prize in medicine and physiology. Coming to the physics, have given to the trio, that means 3 members, for discovering and creating a weather system models and found ways to spot patterns and make predictions about weather and climate. Remember, physics for the weather and climate. Coming medicine and physiology for the receptors of temperature and touch. Coming to the chemistry, development of a precise new tool for molecular construction called organocatalysis. For this development of organocatalysis, a tool has been developed for the molecular construction. For that, they got a Nobel Prize in the chemistry. Coming to the Peace Prize, for courageous fight for the freedom of expression, it has given. Apart from the Nobel Prizes, Svirax Rishbank Prize in Economic Sciences 2021 has been awarded to the 3 scientists for study the relationship between the minimum wage and employment in the early 1990s. They work on the education and pay, that is the employment. These 2 things, their study has been based. For that, they got the prize in economic sciences for the 2021. This is some of the miscellaneous topics. And coming to the other topic, that is the internal security. The first thing is tackling the terrorism around the India and how it got affected to the economy of the India. What are the security concerns? About this, we will look one by one. The recent terror attacks in the Jammu Kashmir, killing some of the civilians, including those majority from the minority communities, killing most of the minority community people, which has been alleged by the Resistance Front, which is a militant outfit in the Jammu Kashmir, has once again raised alarms regarding security of the minorities in the Kashmir. Regarding to this, we will look at present challenges to the India's national security that is posed by different countries, both from the external perspective and both from the internal perspective. That is both from the internal security and external security. We will one by one. The recent power shift in the Afghanistan has raised security concerns. From the first security concerns from the Afghanistan due to the power shift to the Taliban. India is being a skeptical of the Afghanistan being used as a terrorist base against India. And next thing is the Pakistan, always outrightly taken a firm stand against all the things made by the India in all matters, especially regarding the Kashmir issue. And coming to the border disputes with China are always a ongoing concern for India. Since India is entirely dependent on the energy supplies from the Gulf, that means oil supplies, if any instability occurs in the Indian Ocean region, it not only poses a security threat to India, but it will acts as a potential to cripple down India's economy. That's why this Indian Ocean region is also one of the major concern. These are the 4 important things we have to look in the external perspective. The first one is the Afghanistan, second is the Pakistan, third one is the border disputes with China, fourth one is the Indian Ocean region, where we have to strengthen. And apart from it, left-wing extremism or Naxalism in the states of Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Bihar being the some of the concern here. And insurgency and militant groups in the UT of Jammu Kashmir and Lastly, the presence of communalism and separatist feelings to form new states or to form a new country for them in the Northeast groups, including different tribal groups, so-called Bodo land and all these things, Nagaland. All these things has been a major concern in the recent days. And what can be done for the better improvement regarding the security means there have to be better coordination. It is important to ensure that timely coordination between the various defense units. The first one, thus, better coordination between different defense units. In this area of the coordination, it forms a special thing called CDC, that is the Chief Defense Staff. In order to integrate both the Indian Army and the Indian Navy and the Indian Air Force. Increasing defense capabilities. India faces a constant threat at its boundary. There is a need to improve military capabilities, so-called new innovations and technology to be developed to compete at the international level, so-called missiles and all these things. For example, S-400 missile being the important major boost which has been recently imported from the Russia, and new technologies including aircrafts and Indian naval ships, all these things we have to increase our defense capabilities. Apart from this, next important thing, that is the comprehensive national power. In order to stand for a developing strong economy, there will be a film of political will and supportive public information and innovation culture in order to develop into a comprehensive national power. And integration and brotherhood. Apart from coordination and fighting against different odds by using different capabilities and being strong in the internal. Apart from all these things, we have to fight in the two fronts, both externally and internally. Therefore, government should proactively take measures to promote feeling of brotherhood and strictly condemn religious and communal conflicts. This acts as an important concern when coming to the separatist movements in the Northeast, where they don't see themselves as Indians, but they see themselves as a different culture. They see themselves as a Bodos or some Nagas and all these things. For that separatist feeling, the things has been going worse. For example, in the Jammu Kashmir area, the feeling of belonging to the Pakistan and belonging to the culture of the Muslim, all these things have going some of the worst things happening to the India. For this purpose, we have to act in an integrated way to get the brotherhood nature, to act as if we all should think that we all belong to the India. That integration and brotherhood loyalty has to be developed. This is the thing. And coming to the conclusion, with the increasing shifts in the global powers and resultant threats to the India's security, India still needs to use all instruments, both at the national power, political. Coming to the political, there will be a coordination among different parties at the regional level, at the state level, and at the central level. Opposition parties and the power parties all have to take decisions in an integrated manner, and there will be a cultural integration so that different cultures does not feel separatist from them. And diplomatic, coming to the diplomatic, they act as a, when the problems don't solve fighting, we can go through the diplomatic channel and the military if it going worse, and economy, helping other economies. For example, we have to spend on the Bangladesh goods and we have to spend on the Nepali goods. All these things, they will become loyal to the India. In this manner, we have to make the countries around us towards the shift towards the India, thereby attracting them towards the economy, thereby a feeling of belonging or losing something has to be developed. This is the thing. And coming to the next thing, increased cyber threat posed by the cyber warfare and India's need to reframe national security policy. What is the need for the national security policy and all these things? Uh, Cyber warfare. What is this cyber warfare? It refers to the digital means to disrupt the activities of a state or organization carried out for strategic or it may be for the military purpose. For example, military purpose by the Pakistan military or strategic purpose by the Chinese army in the border areas. All these things can happen by using digital means, disrupting different activities. These disrupting may include different files of the government of India, hacking different systems and database in the country, and disruption of the internet networks and all these things, espionage and other illegal ways. Threats to the India. India has no immune to the cyber threats. Several important cyber threats include 2009 Ghost Nest espionage cyber case, in 2018 Aadhaar software hacking, and most recent being the power outage in the Mumbai, which has been said to be hacked by the Chinese uh, presence. Thus, India being a victim of the cyber attacks. This poses more critical threat simply because India lacks the cyberspace infrastructure. Unlike other developed nations, India doesn't have a dedicated component in its military. Important developed nations have a cyber component in its military apart from all these things. India doesn't have a dedicated cyber component in its military. It further puts India in an inferior position. This is because neighboring countries like China poses a danger to the India's security. A well-developed infrastructure to carry out such attacks has been there with the China. As per the Internet World Status 2019, India ranks second in the number of internet users after China. Thus, more potent immune to the different data uh, threatening and data theft, being more active users for the internet. However, India does not have any dedicated cyber security policy to protect the data of its citizens. That's thereby an urgent need for the development of a national security policy. What is the way forward means to revisiting the national security policy to develop its a strategic shift is needed to develop critical and emerging technologies. Apart from this, a dedicated department should be developed in the frontiers like security, nuclear security, cyber security, and maritime security. For all these things, a dedicated department has to be formed. The focus should be on the preventive strikes to anticipate enemies and minimize the damage. Preemptive strikes has to be analyzed, thereby uh, preventing them not to happen. And looking at the PPP mode, currently most of the cyber threats has been addressed only by the government of India, established agencies like CERTIN and all these things. However, there is a need to bring private sector expertise to meet the fast changing cyber requirements, thereby involving a private partnership into the government agencies. That's why it will expand the area of working and creating a safe cyber ecosystem. This will involve creating cyber infrastructure both at the national level and at the individual level. For example, a dedicated security officer has to be appointed to overlook cyber domain and increased investment in the research and development to improve the cyber security and created skilled professionals as promised under the national security policy. These are some of the examples have to be followed. That is the appointing a security officer to overlook cyber domain, having a skilled professionals at the individual level, and the investment in the research and development at the national level and all this. And coming to the international cooperation, uh, India should match its cyber advancement at the international level. India should also think about solving differences and signing the Budapest Convention. This is the first international treaty addressing the cyber issues. India has not been signed this Budapest Convention. Its suggestion to sign the Budapest Convention, thereby somewhat minimizing and nullifying the cyber issues and some improvement in the cyberspace of the India. Although government has taken many steps towards ensuring the cyber security, there is a need to still develop lot many things by enhancing capabilities or reframing policies of the government of India and educating citizens to create a safe and transparent cyber ecosystem at the individual level. India can ensure a stable and secure cyber domain in this way. And coming to the last thing, that is the traffic management framework for the drones. The framework should be regarded as the first step towards allowing beyond visual line of sight drone operations. This is the first step towards allowing beyond visual line of sight drone operation. Till now, only line of sight operations has been done. Now, beyond visual line of sight has been allowed by the government of India. The rule envisages that private third-party service providers can take ensuring the safe operations. All drones except nano drones operating in the green zone shall require to share their real-time locations through the network to the central government. Unmanned traffic management service provider, that is the UTMSP. These unmanned traffic management service providers will be primarily responsible for segregating and separating the drone from other drones. Separating a drone from other drones has to be managed by the this UTMSP, that is the unmanned traffic management service providers. Apart from this, they also regulate the manned aircraft in the airspace below 1,000 feet. All these things has been the responsibility of these persons, UTMS. And Digital Sky platform shall continue to be interface for the government stakeholders to provide approvals and give permissions to the drone operations in the country. This Digital Sky platform will act as the approval for the giving permissions to the drone operations. This policy always allows UTMSPs to levy a service fee on the users. A small proportion of this fee will also be shared with the Airport Authority of India in order to coordinate these operations. These are the important things with regard to the history, art and culture, internal security, and some of the miscellaneous topics. Regarding the other things, we will look at it in the next video. That's all for the day. Thank you.